Welcome to the Ultra Cycling Magazine Show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another great Ultra Cycling Magazine show, the show about everything ultra cycling and everything generally just bikes. This is Jim Lawyer here, and my cohort is Lee Kreider. Hey, Lee, how's it going tonight?
Hey, it's going really well. I have to explain to everybody that we're using a new service. Now, Jim is very familiar with this service. I am not so. But we have to be prepared by the time Jim can't make it so often he's called away to work.
Yep.
I have to be able to run it myself.
Yeah, so I'm hands off tonight.
I've practiced all week long. I've worked with this. I think I've got it figured out. So I'm running the show. I'm pushing all the buttons. So if there's any mistakes, it's me, not Jim.
Nah.
Thank the Lord, Jim is here.
Yes.
For when I screw up.
You're not going to screw up. You're going to do great, Lee. Everything I've seen so far is awesome. So we would like to thank our time stations here in Ohio, the Race Across America time stations. Time station 41 in Oxford, 42 in Blanchester, 43 in Chillicothe. Boy, I'm not used to doing that, am I?
You forget where you were at, Jim?
Yeah, I did. I was like, whoa. But we are brought to you by our time stations here in Ohio that do the Race Across America. And I hang out now at 42 because of the Race Across the East. So we hope to see everybody there this year.
Well, it looks like you got a good start on it.
Yep.
Okay, well, this in 2 weeks, we're going to have the World Time Trial Championships out there at Borrego Springs. And there's a couple of races that really fascinate me.
Mm-hmm.
The first race is between husbands and wives.
That's never good.
Well, it's a little different.
Okay.
We have the wives against the husbands.
Wow.
In this case, Laura Crawford and Maria Parker are going on one 2-person team, and their husbands, John Crawford and Jim Parker, on the other team, and they're in kind of a contest. And we don't believe in betting here, but you can bet on this, Jim.
Wow.
You can actually put money on this race, who you think's going to win between these two teams. And this is a bet you can't lose because they're each racing for charities.
Nice. And
you can go to the website. You can find it there at our website, which I see for some reason isn't showing up, but
yep,
ucm.bike.
And that's the QR code down there in the left
QR
corner.
Code's there, and that's my fault that it's not there.
Oh, no, not at all.
But ucm.bike, and you'll find a link to their website where you have both sides. You can see how much money each has earned. We're not going to tell you what it is. You have to go and look yourself. But it might not appear obvious to you it doesn't appear obvious which team you're voting for. So you might think that the 3,000 Mile to a Cure charity would be Maria's team, the women, the wives, but it isn't. That's the husbands. And the Lucy Ann's place is the ones that the wives are going for. I think I know who I'd bet on, Jim.
I think I do too.
I'm not going to tell you. We're going to keep that
to
ourselves.
We'll put it in a little envelope and then we'll have a reveal later.
Yes. But you can see pretty quick, I think, who the people think.
Yep.
So go put your money down on that. As I said, it's a bet you can't lose. And Mary Savage, who has done such a great job reporting on the Crawfords for us, is going to be reporting on both teams and keeping us updated on how it's going. Mary is such a tremendous reporter, and she's so much fun. And she's going to give us really good reports.
Awesome.
Borrego Springs. And the other race that I'm interested in is Janashuk is racing in the 70 to 79 women's age group with Tracy Achilles. And thankfully, we have talked to them, and we have a little video from these two women.
Excellent.
We hope to be able to cover them as well.
Definitely.
Nice to see you, Jane. Thank you.
We've been, of course,
worried about you and your awesome weather in North Carolina, and we were wondering how you were managing with all the challenges in the last couple of weeks.
Yes, thank you very much. We were actually very, very fortunate that we didn't have any damage to our home that we're living in now or the home that we're building. We did have downed trees and no power, cell, water, or internet, but really, really, we're just blessed that we didn't have any severe damage. And the devastation to the community is really hard on all of us. The news shows it, but the other day we went to coffee in the River Arts District, and that's somewhere that we frequent all the time and have bought paintings for our new home, and it's completely flattened. So it is the South, and the community is just amazing. I was out working in the yard. People stopped and offered me food. They offered me water. They asked me if I needed anything. So it's really just a beautiful experience to see people care for one another. And FEMA, Red Cross, we went and made coffee for the volunteers and brought my dog for pet therapy. So we're doing very well. Thank you.
How did you get into ultracycling?
Well,
I
I
know you were
think
a
some,
runner in the
yes,
past.
from a similar maybe background as you. I was overweight, never exercised. So at 30 years old, I bought a bike and I entered my first triathlon. And, I realized that I was very much out of shape, but I got that little bug. And so that I started running and cycling and swimming. And I lived in Lake Tahoe in California at the time, and I did triathlons in the wintertime and cycling in the summertime. Went to Ironmans, did Hawaii 10 times, did Ultraman. Don't have much experience. I did it 5 years ago. But since then, I've had some health issues, surgeries, invested in KT tape, and lots of metal in my
I've
body.
got a
So,
giant roll.
how about you?
um, I was a runner as well for 40 years. I started when I was 10 years old, and we were
Wow.
we were a running family. We grew up near, just loved doing it, but then I had knee surgery, and to me, cycling was always transportation when I was younger. And so I started cycling just to, pick up something else to do. And we had participated in a few of the MS rides that were, centuries. We had done a few centuries, and it was kind of serendipitous that I got into the WTTC. We don't live too far from there. My husband and I thought, let's do something fun. And we had always gone out to see the start of RAM. And there was a little blurb at the bottom saying, our roster is full, but if you're interested in being on our wait list, send us an email. So I thought, okay, I could do 6 hours. And within a half hour, a response came back saying, we've got a couple of openings in the 24-hour. Are you interested? And I thought, okay. So it was a wonderful experience.
Hmm. I know you ride it pretty much every year, the Borrego race. Do you have goals or aspirations or?
Just consistency. I know that the year that you set the record, that was that really cold year, wasn't it?
Yes,
It was down to for those who
34.
don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and right around that in the surrounding areas.
Hmm.
The start and finish are kind of in the middle of this loop, and the town is basically a bowl that it'll go out to surrounding areas where there might be orchards and just open desert. And so you hear all the coyotes and the. Each year I've done a couple that have been over 200 miles, but I'm honored to be riding in the same category as you. So I appreciate the women really can step up and just do phenomenal things. I really admire the you and the other competitors that I've been up against. I would love to do 250. That is kind of my goal this year, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
And your goals?
Um, well, I think, it's both a mental and a physical race. So mentally I'm strong, but physically I've had some, I think my heart is my primary concern. I get a lot of anxiety because I put a lot of pressure on myself to perform. So it's very important for me when I start the race that I ride Tracy's race and I
Yeah.
let the fast people go and I don't worry about what they're doing and I stick to my race plan.
Okay.
So I really just want to, pace myself, monitor, my food, my liquids, and consistency, as you said. And I like the camaraderie. I feel, privileged to, as you do too, I'm sure, at our age, to toe the starting line. I think I'm grateful for my health. I'm thankful for, my crew and the volunteers out there. And I always say I'm just going to have fun, but I usually manage to drop into that pain cave. And I know I'll visit it and hopefully I won't have too long a stay, but I'm okay with that.
I'm looking forward to seeing you in Borrego Springs.
Yes.
I know good, best wishes on a great race.
Yes. We'll be strong. We'll have fun and we will be proud of racing in our 70s. And
There you
thank
go.
you, Lee, for doing this for the two of us.
You're muted, Lee.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a great race to watch. And
Definitely.
I found our URL there while they were talking.
Excellent. Great. Yeah, that was a great interview from them both.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed talking to them. I said I left a lot of good stuff on the cutting room floor. I
Mm-hmm.
cut it down. They had quite a chat, but so I think we need to get to our guest as quickly as possible.
Definitely. Go ahead.
I do want to mention that next in 3 weeks we're going to be having 2 weeks. Kari Rubinen from Finland is going to be our guest. He's been on here before. I think he's doing his 5th race across America,
Mm-hmm.
and we're looking forward to have him.
Awesome. And I want to let everybody out there know comments are live. So post your questions or comments. And if you don't have a question, just go ahead and let us know you're watching and where you're watching from.
Now, I do have a technical question for Jim.
Yes, sir.
If we get a comment, will a little button show up there at the top?
I'll be on it and I'll watch it and I'll
Okay.
just bring those up for
Very
us.
good.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Let's bring Dr. Vince in here. How are
Vince.
you this evening?
Hey, Dr. Vince.
Hello there. Thanks for having me on tonight. How's everybody doing?
Very good. Awesome to have you here. And it's a great timing because the title, I've been having that problem. So I'm going to be anxious to hear what you have to say.
Well, fantastic. I'm so glad and very honored to be here. And hopefully we can go ahead and help a lot of folks out there with the.
Definitely. You always do.
Yeah, and if you got a question for Dr. Vince, now's the time to post it, guys, because always when the show's over, we get all kinds of questions.
And you can also email him at drvinceofinfinity@gmail.com, and he'll answer you directly there, and he'll also let us know, and we may post it later. So,
well, fantastic. Are we ready to go?
yes, definitely. Go ahead and we'll let you drive since you know what you're doing.
Fantastic. Well, that's what they say I do. Well,
yeah.
Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. Vince Marcel. I'm out here in California, cyclist for the last 30 years, chiropractor for the last 30 years. And what we've seen in the ultra distance world is people having a lot of numbness in the hands, not straight away. Maybe they've been years into it. Maybe it's getting near the end of the season and they know. Michael Phillips was talking about it over the last couple of years of doing RAM, noticing getting the numbness in the hands and it continuing for a few months afterwards. And so, we've been dealing with a lot of cyclists over the years and helping them. And so I wanted to give a little bit of background because a lot of people, what they do, let me just back up for a second. We all have been on our bike. We're going ahead and riding along and we'll feel our fingers go a little numb. What do? We take our hand off and we sort of shake it out, and then we put our hand back on. And sometimes it happens in both, and we shake out and then we get back in. So what I wanted to try to do is give you a little background of what's taking place. And so I brought a model in. He just got through doing cycle. He didn't hydrate or refuel, so he's a little under the weather. He's just he's exhausted. You
He's
exhausted?
here for Halloween. There you go.
Oh,
Woo!
Dr. Vince stole that out of Jim Lawyer's yard. I
Yeah,
know.
I didn't have a picture ready for today, but I've got like 40 skeletons in the yard now.
It's got me running away,
There
so
you
I
go.
be able to get me there. So wanted to talk a little bit and what they call where what happens is people think I've got numbness in the hands and if I keep shaking out, it works best. Or I
Hmm.
wait for the problem to go away, or it just seems to persist longer and longer, and I just keep putting up with it. My rides become less. You go ahead and get bike fits, you get different handlebars, you get some gel on the bars. You're doing all these things without getting it diagnosed properly. And so there's a few reasons why this place, but one of the biggest reasons is that we have collarbones. Okay. And what I wanted to show you is that you have 5 nerves that come from your neck and they go right underneath your collarbone and then down the arm and into your hand. Now, what you don't know is that you have your pec muscle, this pectoral major muscle that has to attach on the bottom of the collarbone and on the chest bone. And when you are holding on to the bars, you are squeezing that muscle. So if my fit is improper, if I'm too stretched out because I think I want to ride with 120 stem, or I bought a bike from a friend of mine and we're about the same height, but you're finding yourself stretched out, or you're on bumpy road, these pecs are going to engage, which pull down your collarbones, which will then put pressure onto that brachial plexus. That's what the term is. So in medicine, we call that thoracic outlet syndrome. So we can do this, but we find that it starts getting worse and worse. So some of the things that attribute to this, and the people that I've been working with, we've all gone down on our bike, whether it's forgetting to unclip from your shoes, or going down on wet pavement, or coming around on some sand. Most of us have gone down on our bike, and the first thing we do is we outstretch our hand and we land. Some of us have gone ahead and fractured an arm bone. Some of us have fractured a humerus. Some of us have fractured a collarbone. Some of us have gone ahead and had an AC separation. Or some of us have just sort of been milking it along, trying to wait till it gets better. All these traumas can affect how the clavicle is attached to your sternum. This whole joint is free floating. It moves. It only has the attachment right here where the sternum and the collarbone come together. And when it's out of alignment, most simple way you can look to see, you go in front of the mirror and you feel there's these little knuckles that you'll feel right at the tip of the bone. You can be right in the middle in the mirror and you can look to see. So if you look at me, I sleep on my left side. So all of a sudden I put my arm up, and so all of a sudden it's gone ahead and it's changed. So sometimes in chiropractic, we'll go ahead make that simple adjustment that can go ahead and change how that nerve supply going down at the arm works. So those are some of the reasons why we go ahead and have some. That's trauma related. Other things when coming into a fit, sometimes people go, oh, you know what, I want to be like so and so professional rider. There's this whole thing that I've been reading from Bicycle Cycling Magazine, or some other articles, or some things I saw on the internet, where having narrower bars is going to go ahead and allow me to become more aerodynamic, which will allow me to become faster. And now, if we talked about these pecs, as they come in, you tighten up more, that can go ahead and put more pressure on that brachial plexus because you closed in your grip onto the handlebars. So you have to sometimes relax. So that's a little bit on the handlebars, or even if that stem is too long where you're stretching out, it closes down that brachial plexus, and the G forces that are coming from that front wheel through that head tube through the handlebars can make a difference. So those are some of the biomechanics that happen from dealing with a fit, that if the bars are too narrow. Some of the things that we see also from a female cycle portion of view is dealing with breast tissue. Sometimes going ahead, you're trying to go ahead, if you, even though the fitter has adjusted you for your width from your AC joint to your AC and say it's 40, but if I'm a female that has some breast tissue, when I try to go ahead and fit right what the fitter did, I sometimes will go, the female will close down that area because of the breast tissue pulling down. There's a muscle that comes on to the chest that will pull also onto that brachial plexus. So these are just a few of the reasons that could be causing some of those. So I see Jane. Hi, Jane. From Southern California. We enjoy the Infinity Seat. Dr. Vince has been unrelenting in getting our bike fittings just right. I have a question about gloves. Some ultracyclists never wear them. Any thoughts, pros or cons of theirs affecting the hands? I think it's a great thing, especially I think from an ultra endurance world, that you're on the bike for so long. If you have a pair of gloves that could go, I think padding is very important. I haven't found any really good ones for myself for long term, because I had this after doing a century ride out in Honolulu, hadn't been on the bike for a couple of years, and all of a sudden we did this, and I didn't have the right gloves. They were just the leather; they didn't have pad in them, and I ended up with a little bit of numbness that lasted for a few days afterwards myself. So yes, Jane, gloves are very important. I think for it's making sure that they're able to breathe. Sometimes because if you're as an endurance, and if you happen to get, if your body begins to sweat too much and you start to get too much moisture, then what takes place is that you start retaining too much water inside your glove, which can cause the skin to become dehydrated. So that can cause another element of why, so you might having irritation and how the sweat is affecting that. But that's a great question. It's trying to find the right pad with the right ventilation of the glove to getting aeration through there, so it's not staying too wet for when you're doing anything 100 plus.
Dr. Vince, there was a doctor who developed a padding that was used for prosthetics,
Okay.
and it was called, I think it was named after him. It's called Spenco, and I had gloves like that. I thought they were great. I haven't been able to find them since. They just kind
They're
of
very,
disappeared.
exactly. You just can't find good stuff. And usually, good stuff, if it doesn't hit the mainstream market, it usually sort of goes with the inventor. It's sort of like, and it's, unfortunately, sometimes maybe somebody bought the company from him or something. If he did that, and unfortunately, in today's world, they find cheaper products to replace it to go ahead with the bottom line. I know for us, trying to make our seats and having good materials, with the costs, things going up so much, it's been crazy. So, yeah, gloves are important. So,
Okay. Jane has another question here. Um, benefits of proper stack on bars, aero bars, limitations on adjustments you're able to make.
well, that's another great Jane. Jane was here with her husband, and we were going back and forth on their bikes and trying to find what was a great fit. And there's a portion of when going in and being in the arrow position. If you look at a Ryan Collins, he can have his arms side by side. He's super lean. In his kits, he's wearing either a small or an extra small. He's got the flexibility. But as we mature, we have less flexibility. And I think sometimes we look again what the winners in the industry are doing, and we try to replicate them without understanding what's going on with our bodies. In that position of the stack, one thing we were noticing was, what is the pitch? So if we go ahead, for example, if I'm in the arrow position and I'm trying to have this aerodynamics where my arms are being flat, if I go ahead and you look at my shoulders, once I go ahead and bend those bars up a little bit, anywhere from a 10 to 15 degree, my shoulders naturally drop, which then takes pressure off the nerves that go underneath the collarbone down into. So that not only just with numbness in the hands, but that just relaxes the shoulders more, relaxes the neck, and it allows my low back to relax in those aero bars as well. So those are, as we were noticing, that was a big thing to helping Jane, and going back from her husband's bike to his bike, and trying to make sure that those bars were as comfortable. The stack is important because a lot of times people try to make one bike do two things. And I have a hybrid position, change my pedal stroke, which will allow me to get more over that front wheel. But if I try to take a road bike and I just clip the bars onto the handlebars, I close down my hip angle, which then causes me to reach farther, which then puts more pressure on the shoulders, closes down, and puts more pressure onto the brachial plexus. It causes my trying to sight even tougher, and sometimes can lead to that Schirmer's neck. So the risers are important when you're trying to make a bike do two things with that, from a road bike to an aero position bike. So great question, Jane. Again, asking those right things is understanding how your body's communicating. I think, if I can make one suggestion, if anybody's looking to buy a bike from a friend, is not look at height. I've seen so many people when having numbness in the hands, shoulder pain, neck pain, low back pain, whatever it is, they look at it and says, guess what? We're about the same height. I have this bike, and you can have it for a good price. And not knowing, okay, but your leg lengths could be completely different, which throws off how your body, or sometimes you have a longer leg and a shorter arm. So there's multiple factors to look at when purchasing a bike from a friend or through a second party, just not just price.
Yep.
Somebody by the name of Jim Lawyer. I don't know who he is.
I figured that would be the easiest way to get in and get a question in.
He only gets numbness on the tandem, not on the single. Those both have the same fit.
Same fit. So, is it because I'm probably worried about my passenger and I'm holding on tighter? Could that be the cause? Or
most definitely, because you have twice as much movement happening.
Right. Okay.
So the question. So now let me ask you: do you have the same size bars on your tandem as you do on your single bike?
Because of my physiology problems with my cerebral palsy, we make everything exact. So,
but I would go one size bigger on your bars.
Okay.
To give you stability of that motion from the tail end.
Excellent.
So the way that I try to talk about differences in width or shorter. Some people surfing, if you're on a smaller board, it's a little squirrelier. When you're on the long board, it's just a nice cruising board. So going ahead and having that extra one size bigger will help you give a little stability. So this way your pecs aren't working as much.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yep, that's great. I will do that.
Now,
go ahead.
Is that a straight bar or is that
road bar
on your tandem?
Yeah, road bar, identical to what? Okay. Yeah. So we'll just go one size bigger, and we'll try that.
Thanks, Henry.
This is where you sometimes look at it. You go ahead, so you're going to go one size bigger.
Yep.
Sometimes you might need to go ahead and what's degree stem are you having on there?
I do not remember right off the top of my head.
Okay.
So you want me to go ahead?
The possibility is, so let's just say you're running a minus and plus 6.
Okay.
So you might go ahead and have just a slightly larger stem. If it's a 90 or 100, when you put that angle on there, it's going to go ahead and bring it back about 5 to 10 degrees. So that's going to go ahead and allow your bicep and to give you more stability, so it's not so far out in front of you. So that's what the one side and slightly closer, so it gives you more workability versus being what you do on your single bike and being in this position. Now you've just brought it, so now you're ready to attack. It's almost like when you're playing rugby, that defensive move when you're going out there.
Perfect.
Okay, we got another question. Thanks for all the questions here. Let's see what happened here.
You got it?
I got it.
Okay.
Numbness in the hands when I'm on long climbs. Why should that be?
All righty. So let's talk about climbs. Are climbs easier or harder than flats. Harder. We have to use more oxygen.
Mm-hmm.
So as we look at our lungs, we have 3 lobes on the right side and we have 2 lobes on the left side. So when we look at the person, let's take his buddy here. So we go ahead and have inside, you're going to have the lung fields. And if you look right, if my hand was following, this is where the collarbone would be
Mm-hmm.
right above this tissue. So what takes place is that as I'm huffing and working harder to get a tidal volume of O2 into the body and I'm pushing out CO2, what's taking place is I'm breathing in
Mm-hmm.
heavier and harder and doing a lot more respiratory work. And what takes place, if we take our buddy here, is that I have these ribs up at the top that are smaller
Mm-hmm.
in diameter versus when I get down to the lower. So if I have any fixation, so my next question would to you, if you can answer me, is it happen in both hands or does it happen in one hand more than the other? So that'd be something I'm thinking. If I think some more, I'd be thinking about the draw clavicle. If I notice my hands being more on both sides when I'm climbing, it's because of the increased inspiration that I have to do to get more O2 to fuel the engines of my legs to be able to get me up those hills. And once I crest, and all of a sudden I have that release, I don't have to work as hard. All of a sudden, my rib cage and everything is able to calm down, which then takes pressure off the brachial plexus, which allows for my breathing to calm down, which my hands come back to normal.
Okay, Dusty S says both hands go numb often within the first half hour of a ride. This happens on all 4 bikes, including my mountain bike with flat bars. All bikes were bike fit,
Now
and
I know Dusty personally, so I know Dusty's got some tightness in her shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
So as she reaches, and unfortunately, she's getting over long COVID as well. So she's had some respiratory issues with after having long COVID. Hi, Dusty. So there again, it's looking at how to help open. So there's some things that would be very helpful, Dusty, to see if you were to go ahead. There's these things that you can purchase online. You have these heat packs that you can put in a microwave. I don't own a microwave, but if you have a microwave, you can pop them in there for about 30, 45 seconds and it'll heat it up. And it's sort of it goes around and it allows you to warm up your shoulders so you can get a good little motion. It's sometimes that certain, because you do your stretching of your legs, you go ahead and sort of do a light spin for the first 5 miles and you kick into it. But you really, you're not doing yoga, you're not doing maybe some people are, but you're not looking at how to open up old injuries or tissue, especially since she's been dealing with long COVID for the last couple of years, unfortunately. So getting a heat pack in a chiropractic office, or I should say some chiropractic offices, they'll use a heat pack to go ahead and place on the patient before they get adjusted to go ahead and loosen up soft tissue, which allows the adjustment to go easier. So sometimes going ahead and having a form of a moist hot pack can go ahead and allow for the muscular tissue to relax, especially if we're going 30 minutes into whatever bike, and she's using gloves. I believe because of the long COVID and having the respiratory issues, I think it's closing down and putting a lot of pressure on the brachial plexus.
okay, Easy 55 says it's just the left hand while climbing.
Okay, so easy 55. I would think about looking at the collarbone. So I'm looking at
Mm-hmm.
the camera. It's got me backwards. So this is my right side. This is my left side. So I want to see what that collarbone looks like. And that's sometimes what a physical therapist is going to go ahead and help stretch muscles and do things, maybe strengthen them. But a chiropractor is looking for subluxations, a bone that's slightly out of alignment and understanding. So especially if it's on one side. And in my office, we take x-rays. We want to see what the structure looks like underneath. So it's not just going, oh, it's out, let's go ahead. And it's not a big adjustment. It's just a slight, because it's connected by this cartilaginous tissue, this little disc in the muscles. So, but if I have any pressure on my neck, those nerves can affect some of the muscular tissue that might be pulling things out of alignment. Or easy 55, if you've had any, have you had any traumas? Have you gone ahead and had any? Now, maybe sometimes people don't think about this, but they go, you know what? I've never gone down my bike. I haven't had an open hand out, but I played football in high school. I
Mm-hmm.
served in the military. I see so many men and women that have served our country, been through boot camp, and
Mhm.
have injured themselves in their young years, and unfortunately, that has carried over into their later life, their adult life, their parenthood life, their cycling life, and nobody connected the two dots together. So I'm
Mhm.
always trying to educate. When you talk to a practitioner, mention everything, even if you don't think it participates or pertains to what you think your problem is. Don't try to assume what you think it is, because we need to know everything. I go
Mhm.
back as far, when I see a scar on somebody's face, tell me how that happened. If I could share one quick story, we had a lady came in, she was having low back pain on riding her bike, and I was like, and she just had hip surgery where she was going through it, and I was telling her why she should have it. And I got x-rays from her, and I said, it being your preteens, probably around between 10 and 13 years old, you had a major head trauma. And she looked at me, and she's 60, she just turned 60, and she goes, I've never had any type of head trauma. I go, you've had some trauma that had caused pressure on your neck. And she goes, I've never had it. And she's like getting really upset with me. A couple of days later, she comes back and she apologizes. My brothers informed me that when I was 11 years old, parents had left the house and they went ahead and they built a zip line in the backyard, and they were riding it. And I said, if you didn't let me do it, I was going to tell mom and dad. Well, they let her. Halfway through, she lost her grip. She flipped and landed on her head in the backyard. And to make sure that nobody got in trouble, nobody told mom and dad that she landed on her
Yeah,
head.
yeah.
Yep.
And so these traumas that take place in our childhood spend over into our passion for cycling, and people don't think that it's relevant. So that's the difference of what I bring to the game as a cyclist, as a chiropractor, is looking at everything to understand where, not just when you have these symptoms and going treating the tip of the iceberg. It's looking at what's happening beneath the water to understand where the body has been adapting and protecting itself over the years. So important. But
That's in,
go ahead, Lee.
I was going to say it's interesting. Dusty is just commenting, so they don't hurt at the same time. I assume she means both hands don't hurt
Right,
at the same
exactly.
time.
Yeah. So those are some of the other component that happens. Not just to plug my seat here for a second, but
Mhm.
when you're riding and you're riding on a traditional seat and you're sitting on your butt bones and you're stretched out and you're reading, are you riding on there? And to avoid pain on the perineum and through this area, what the pelvis will do will rock back. Well, we've seen this in different cyclists, and all our long distance cyclists are going to notice at a certain point their body starts to fidget, their back starts to get rounded. And as my back rounds, it closes down my chest cavity, which puts more pressure onto that area. So the nice thing with our seat, the ability to go ahead and sit inside that opening to allow the body not to have that constant pressure on the perineum will allow the person to be in that more aggressive position, that
Mhm.
pelvis moving forward versus trying to avoid all that pressure that it's used to when it's sitting either on a man or female body parts. So, just a little thing of understanding how the body's communicating and working, and why it might be adapting after the first 100, 200,000 miles of depending on the race that you're choosing.
Yeah.
Hi,
Jen,
Jen.
Jen,
She must
one
be
of the
typing
world's
something.
great photographers here, and I had to have you.
Yes,
And we're going to talk to one of
she's
the world's great physical therapists, Jan.
wonderful. Yeah, you guys heard Jen's story, right? She
Jane.
went ahead and she had a triathlon bike built for like 15 years ago, but could never ride it. And we
Mhm.
had the blessing of serving her and getting a seat, and she just went ahead and did crushed her Ironman this year.
Yes.
And so it's just so exciting that
Yeah, I
sometimes
saw
we get
that.
rid of our bikes but she had built that bike and she still held on to it after over a decade of having it. So it was
Wow.
really cool to see her all her success that she's doing. Would you please
So
discuss the
Jane's got a
consequences?
question for you, or discussion.
Okay, you the
I don't even
breezes.
understand those words, so you'll have to explain it.
Well, here's a great. Okay, so as we go ahead, so there's a portion. So as you're sitting on the bars, you have the I don't have a. Oh, hold on one second. Sometimes you're going to have bars, the J tubes they call it. Sometimes the bars you can't do anything. Like these are carbon bars, and they're sort
Yep.
of, even though they're attached, but they're straight bars. You can't do anything. Sometimes you have clip-on bars that will allow you to adjust, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you have these J tubes that come up and allows you to go ahead and adjust how that arrow bar is going ahead and fitting. So some of the times, depending once again, if I'm a person that's used to driving 40 hours a week, if I'm a person behind working my mouse constantly, there's certain biomechanics that happen. So the J tubes, as we were talking about before, are going to go ahead and be in about a 10 to 15 degree tilt to
Mm-hmm.
relax the shoulders. But sometimes, what you can't see, let's go ahead and bring back our buddy here, is that in the forearm is going ahead, and if we look, it's understanding what's happening with these two bones of the forearm, and here's our thumb. So sometimes in riding, what this one won't do, can you give me oh, there we go. Sometimes you'll get a cross of that forearm. So it's understanding what that bone can do. Can you give me the big one by my desk? So I got to get a little sip of water here, guys.
Well, Jen wants to say she changed her name. She saved her custom bike and got me back to racing. Well, that's good. So we got a long
Yep.
question here from Ann.
So,
She works at
so, so,
REI. Okay, I'm
hold on
sorry.
one second.
Go
So,
ahead.
so what takes place is you have three nerves that come down. So you have some of the nerves that go down into the thumb, the index finger, the middle finger, and half of the ring finger. That's going to be the median nerve. And then you have the other half of the ring finger and the pinky, which is going to be the ulnar nerve. And the back side of the hand deals with the radial nerve.
Wow.
So when this arm, when you're holding on in that arrow tube, and if you're too crossed over, that can go ahead and put pressure on those
Yep.
nerves too as you turn. So that's why what Jane was talking about is sometimes adjusting your J tube to help relax some of the tension or an old trauma that you might have in the forearm on how things are articulated.
Yeah,
All right,
interesting
go
enough,
ahead.
my problem was these two fingers.
Yep.
That's the ulnar nerve. Yep.
Yep. I went to the Sentes bars. They got me out like that
Oh, Jim.
to release mine.
Okay.
Let's get back to Ann's
Yeah.
question
So
here.
sometimes. All right. Ann says what now?
She works at REI. Every other customer talks about numb hands. There are many
Yep.
variables. They just say, I'm glad that Dr. Vince is providing this information I can share with my customers. And I suppose if you've saved that email address, Ann, you can
Yep.
send customers directly to Dr. Vince as well. And we'll put that up again here.
Right there it is. Maybe. Yep.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Copy
Ann.
that.
Appreciate
And
that.
I'm going to try to get that into our show notes.
Mm-hmm.
UCM.bike, look up this video. It'll be the top one at the moment. And in the show notes, you'll see a link to Dr. Vince's website. And also, I'll try to get that email address in there for people who didn't pick it up. Okay, I believe, Jim,
So
that covers
if I could just
all the
one thing,
questions we
Lee.
have at the moment.
One thing, Lee, if I might be able to finish up on this, biggest thing that people think about after a ride, we're thinking about food, we're thinking about hydration. Think about some ice, because you've been dealing with things that you can't see, the G forces. If you don't have a specialized future shock, if you're not using Redshift, their stem with their shock absorber, it's trying to go ahead and make sure that you're placing some ice on the neck and the upper back, especially if you're having some numbness in the hands. It just calms down some of the muscles tense, some of the spasms that might be going as a protective mechanism, because as we mature, our discs get smaller and we can't see what might be happening with our biomechanics when we try to go ahead and do our ultra distance riding, or even if you're a cyclist that's getting out and having some fun, or you're with your companion that tries to get. So sometimes we all, as ultra distance cyclists, we'll go out ride, but then we want to ride with our mates, with our partners. And so sometimes they can't go as long because they're having numbness or they're noticing other significant things. So ice is always a great way. I say for about maximum for about 5 minutes. The easiest way is using some corn or some frozen peas and just put it right across the top of the shoulders. Get yourself an extra large bag and just break it up. And the nice thing about that, it's not going to get too cold. We don't want to go freezing. You just want to cool down some of that tension that will go ahead and release some of the muscles that are going to be pulling onto the spine and causing pressure on some of that nervousness. You can also go ahead for Easy 55. You can put it up in the front where you were noticing on the left side of your collarbone. So ice is a friend of ours to help calm down any silent inflammation that we can't see or feel.
Excellent.
I have to say that's Anne with an E, thinking of Anne of Green Gables. You know, she always get that E in there. That's all the questions we have. We've gone 45 minutes, Doc. We need to have you back again.
Definitely.
And
I'd be more than honored.
we do appreciate you jumping in here at a moment's notice because we did have a no-show, and turns out that Elena, who was from Austria, supposed to be here. She had her accounts hacked and everything. She couldn't get online, and her voice over IP phone wasn't working, and so we'll get her on again because she won the race across Austria by 2 hours over the nearest man, and we want to talk to her. Couple more comments. Jim's pulled them up here. Are you working on a time trial specific saddle? If so,
it will be cut. Yes.
When?
It will be released 2025. My wife's
Awesome.
looking at me. We are doing a secret release. Nope. My PR's look. I know nothing. I know nothing. Nope. Yep. Nope. Nope.
You're gonna get hurt.
This isn't a vapor seat, is it? I mean, it's a real seat. Yeah.
That's where the hook, from the old days.
There you go. Exactly.
Okay.
We are not releasing it.
Yeah, we've had a nice group here with us today.
Definitely.
Thank everybody. I think we're going to wind this up, Dr. Vince. Not we're done, but let's take a couple bites of this apple. All right. And he looks like he's locked up, Jim.
Yep. Yeah. I've noticed a little bit of that.
Yeah, you've had some little bit of delays during this, and when we get on and see it on the server, it might be just fine. We don't know, but hard to tell.
Definitely.
So I think we're going to wrap it up, Jim.
Excellent. Yeah, we just lost him.
Thank everybody for all their comments and all their participation.
Definitely.
It looks like we lost him altogether. Thank you, Dr. Vince, anyway, if we can't hear us or not. And thank everybody for watching. Be sure to give us a follow on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube.
Definitely.
And remember that email address. Text that to me, Jim, so I get it correct.
I will do that, sir.
On the show notes.
He's back.
He's back with us.
You wanted to tell me you didn't want to be talking, or you could told me to be quiet.
No, you're good.
We're good. We just have fun here. And,
there you go.
But I said, be sure to follow us and subscribe because we're going to have some interesting videos, I hope, over this next 2 weeks during the World Time Trials.
Yep.
Between the race between Jane and Tracy, and also this wives against husbands.
Yep.
Whom we all know how that's going to turn out, except we don't.
Exactly.
And, be sure to go to ucm.bike, look up that link, and put some money on this.
Definitely.
Let's bet on this. Let's see how that turns out. I'm not a betting person, but I'm going to bet on this one, Jim.
And again, it goes to charity, so it's a great thing.
Charity.
Yes,
it's a bet you can't lose.
There you go.
So,
and we definitely want Dr.
Mary Savage is the best reporter we could possibly have.
There you go.
Comment on. I know she's got some ideas about how to make this really come alive.
Yeah.
So, at any rate, thank you all for following us. Thank you, And let's find Greg if we can. Hey, it's easier to find things on this thing, Jim.
I know you've done a great job, Lee. I've been very impressed.
I don't think I made a single mistake. We did get just another message here, Jim. Can you pop it up?
Yeah, let me get there real quick.
This always happens about the
looks
time
like
we're ready to go off the air.
E3's be ready.
And then
What happened to it?
there we go.
It's I
The
see
one-
it. I
got
can get
it?
it.
Okay.
Oh, you got it.
Yeah.
He wants to know when your E3 saddles will be available.
Next month.
Is he still stalled?
Yeah,
The
a little
E3 will
bit.
be back next month.
Excellent.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we definitely want to have you back on, and we'll talk about saddles next time.
Don't go away,
Your
Jim.
great Infinity. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, Greg, here you go.
This is Gregory Zuber, thanking you for watching and sharing.
Music by Kevin MacLeod.